Hey there everybody, Pete here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums. Today we're going to look at the studio discography of a very fine band, U.S. metal act Nevermore. Okay, so Nevermore, of course, the band that formed out of the ashes of Sanctuary. All right, Warrell Dane, Jeff Loomis on guitar, Van Romaine and Jim Shepard. All right, the four-piece that kind of made it all happen. These guys kind of had their own style, right? They were, first and foremost, a heavy metal band, but they blended elements of thrash, speed metal, progressive metal, power metal. All right. At times, their music was so damn heavy, bordered on extreme metal, but usually not. You had the great vocal stylings of the late Warrell Dane, and of course, Jeff Loomis's shredding guitar work. All right, the guy, massive riffage and blistering, blazing, shredding solos. A great band, and another one of those bands that never made a bad album. Okay, so I'm going to rank their albums. Man, this was tough. I had to like re-listen to each one over and over again, and I'm just kind of like, there's like almost nothing that separates their catalog, with the exception of a couple, which are still great. Man, so many of their albums are just equally kick-ass. But they're another one of those bands that continually were consistent and kept getting better. So like a lot of their later period albums were exceptional, right? So let's get started here. I'm going to include at the bottom of the list, and it's really good. But I'm going to include their EP, In Memory, okay? Which this came out, what year did this come out here? In Memory came out in 1996, all right? So that was basically a year after the band had gotten together and released their first album. Came out with this, 5 tunes, but, most of the Nevermore songs are, a little longer than normal. Not epics by any means, but, 5, 6 minutes, 7-minute songs, right? So, some great stuff here. The title track is great. Matricide is awesome. Sorrowed Man, all right? Optimist or Pessimist. A strong EP of very, very solid tunes. Next up, I'm going to go with their self-titled debut. And again, it's a killer album. It's an excellent debut. I just think that they continued to up their game after they released this. But this is no doubt a very fine album. I almost feel bad putting it down here, but it's just their catalog is that strong. It's that strong. What Tomorrow Knows, Killer, The Sanity Assassin. Great song, okay? Garden of Grace, Sea of Possibilities. You got the venomous Timothy Leary. Just top to bottom, really, really strong. Really, really strong. Next up, again, a fantastic album. Don't think that any of these, I don't dislike any of these by any means. None of these albums suck by any means. They're all great, but you got to kind of put them in some kind of ranking, right? You got to give a little bit of favoritism to some over the other. So I'm going to go Dream in Neon Black next. By the way, they stayed on one label throughout their entire career. All right, Century Media. Not a lot of bands do that. Another really, really strong album. A lot of tracks on here. You got like 13. Beyond Within, probably one of my favorite tunes on here. The title track is great. Deconstruction, Obsidian, top to bottom, great. Another one of their heavier albums, but all their albums are pretty heavy. And they, Nevermore's music had like this kind of darkness to it, which I always really dug. Really heavy riffs. A lot of times they did like the downtune riffing type of thing. Blazing solos. The songs are thrashy, but some of their stuff is kind of dirgy. It's like. And Warrell Dane, by this time when he was in Sanctuary, he was doing like those kind of high-pitched histrionic vocals, and he really toned that down quite a bit. He went more for like a kind of like a mid-range kind of gruff thing, but occasionally he did shoot into the upper registers, but that kind of wasn't his thing with this band. Whether he couldn't really do it that well anymore, or whether that's just the decision that they decided to go with. Next up, I'm going to go with a favorite of mine, but these are all favorites. Enemy of Reality. All right. This is the famous album that, fans were screaming about the production and how muddy it sounded, and they went back in and remixed it, and it, obviously sounded better, but a great album, great songs, regardless of whether you like the production or not. The title track is killer. Never Purity, Tomorrow Turned Into Yesterday. I love the kind of melodic nature of that song. I, Voyager, Create the Infinite. Very cool album cover too. Another really heavy album. All right, next up, I'm going to go all the way back to their second album. Okay, their second full length. And this probably is going to be a favorite of many. All right, The Politics of Ecstasy. This was probably the album that really opened a lot of eyes for a lot of people, fans and critics alike, of the kind of power of this band. All right, the songwriting really took a dramatic shift upwards from the first album. Like I said, not the first album is bad because it ain't. It's great. But here, the maturity of the band really, guys all really gelling together. The Seven Tongues of God, great song. A really impressive kick-ass album opener. All right, The Sacrament, Passenger, the title track, Lost, for crying out loud. Great songs and killer production on these albums. All right, this one could rank higher. I was really into the band when this album came out, and I remember listening to this a lot, and I saw them on this tour. I saw them a couple times live. So this album kind of has a special place for me. It may not rank as high for a lot of people, but, sometimes you got albums that kind of hit you at the right time, and they remain with you for all those reasons, right? So I'm going to go with Dead Heart in a Dead World. This was a big favorite of mine, all right? It still is, but, like I said, this band just kept improving, and but there's some ultra memorable tracks on here. You got Narcosynthesis, which is great. Inside Four Walls, which I absolutely love. The River Dragon Has Come. The Heart Collector. Great melodies on some of these tunes also, as brutally heavy as they are. All right. Engines of Hate. They do a ridiculously heavy rendition of Simon and Garfunkel's The Sound of Silence, which if you didn't really know that's what it was, you'd be kind of like, something sounds familiar about this song. And then you're like, oh, wait, I know that tune, right? So, Believe in Nothing is another great song in here. So, a killer album. Kind of like a really strong, like kind of late 90s, early 2000s record that just kind of really sat well with me, just perennial favorite. But, this is one of those rare bands that their last two, unfortunately before they broke up and then, Warren Dane left us way too early. For me, their last two releases are their strongest. This Godless Endeavor, all right? Crushing album. And I think their last two are their heaviest albums. First of all, look at that album cover. How kind of wicked is that, right? A lot of great tracks on here. Born, Final Product, My Acid Words. I mean, just... And here, Jeff Loomis as a guitar player was just ridiculously improving by leaps and bounds with every album. I mean, this guy is, he's one of the best in the business in the metal world. And you could tell, not only his solos, but the construction of the riffs, all these really kind of wild technical riffs, and just, with the great production, just enormous. Andy Sneap producing, Andy Sneap, producer extraordinaire, also co-guitar player in Judas Priest, just doing wonders with this band. A huge sounding album, all right? Worrell Singing Up a Storm on here. Just love it. Thundering rhythms. In my opinion, only bested ever so slightly by the Obsidian Conspiracy, which is the final album that they did in 2010, right? I believe. Yeah, God, so long ago, right? 2010. Hold on. God, can't see nothing without glasses, guys. Yeah, 2010. Seems like forever ago, and it's 10 years ago. It's hard to believe that it's been 10 years since we had a new Nevermore album, right? Just crazy. But, the band was like busting apart the seams. There was all sorts of, a lot of alcohol abuse in the band. Worrell had a really bad drinking problem, and other guys in the band had some issues, right, from what's being reported. But, they just, sometimes bands have a shelf life, and they take it as far as they can go, and they just kind of implode. They need a break from each other, right? So they broke up, and Worrell kind of got the Sanctuary back together, and then, a few years later, he left us. Very, very sad. We lost a great talent with him. But this is a fantastic record. Arguably their heaviest yet most progressive album. All right, lots of great technical guitar riffing going on here, intricate rhythms, killer songs. You know, Your Poison Throne and The Maiden Spoke, amazing tune. Emptiness Unobstructed, The Day You Built the Wall, The Termination, Proclamation. Yeah, just a great track. Title track is great too. You know, doesn't get much better. You know, American metal from the 90s and the 2000s, but like I said, kind of thrash metal. Thrash metal meets power metal meets progressive metal. All right, you know, no growling vocals. All right, no blast beats, just a lot of double bass drum and technical riffery. You know, shredding solos. Really cool vocals, dark, angry music though, very angry. I would say, you know, if you never heard Nevermore, trying to compare, I don't know, maybe somewhat along the lines of Pantera, but different. Definitely a little more progressive, probably darker. All right, a little less on the groove, but you know, wild guitar playing and just really angry. You know, angry headbanging music. All right, but definitely has a progressive mindset to it. So if you never checked them out, give them a chance. I would say, you know, listen to this album, their last one first. You can't go wrong with any of them. All right, can't go wrong with any of them. So let's recap my list. Coming in at number 1, the Obsidian Conspiracy. Coming in at number 2, This Godless Endeavor. Coming in at number 3, Dead Heart in a Dead World. Coming in at number 4, The Politics of Ecstasy. Coming in at number 5, Enemies of Reality. Coming in at number 6, Dreaming Neon Black. Coming in at number, oh geez, I lost count already, 7, Self-Titled debut. And coming in at number 8, the very fine In Memory EP. All right, there you have it, Nevermore. Worst to best, best to worst, ranking the albums top to bottom, favorite to least favorite, all that kind of stuff. This is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're on the mighty YouTube all the damn time, so stay tuned this week for all sorts of great stuff. And for all of you who are going to be asking, since I wore my Merciful Fate shirt, Pete, when are you going to rank the albums of Merciful Fate? I only have the first 2. I got Melissa and Don't Break the Oath. I'd never bought any of the other ones that they released sporadically all throughout, so probably not going to do that. But maybe someday I'll do a top 10 songs from Merciful Fate. A great band. Those first 2 albums are legendary. This is on the web at www.seatranquility.org, guys, and we'll see you real soon, all right? Take care. Bye-bye.